primul scriitor african distins cu Premiul Nobel Pentru Literatură. Un luptător pentru drepturile omului, o voce în istoria Africii, dar și în democrația vestului. Wole Soyinka a venit pentru prima dată în România la Festivalul Internațional de Teatru de la Sibiu, unde o stea de pe Aleea Celebrităților îi poartă acum numele. Ne pregătim de o întâlnire remarcabilă cu Wole Soyinka, scriitor nigerian distins cu Premiul Nobel Pentru Literatură, în vârstă de 90 de ani și cu o poveste de viață extraordinară. It was 1986 when you were awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature. What do you remember still from that moment?
The first thing is that I didn't believe it to begin with. You know, there are these various institutions which nominate, including past laureates. And I was a member of one of those institutions. My university was one of the nominees. So we'd been nominating other people. And so when it came, it was like, oh, yeah, this is a mistake or whatever. It took me a while to get used to it. And then I had some fun with it. For the simple reason that somebody like you had been detailed, had been informed, a journalist, a person, been detailed to track me down and be with me when the announcement was made to me, so he could actually write about my response.
Okay.
And he tracked me down to my cousin's house where I landed when I was coming from the States. The announcement took place while I was in the air. And so they all knew that I stayed in Paris for my UNESCO meetings at the time. And so he tracked me down and he kept saying, you know, I asked him what was his business with me. And he kept saying, oh, don't worry. My cousin had betrayed me by letting him into the apartment. And there he was. And I just didn't, I thought he wasn't a serious person. He just picked up some rumor somewhere. And so he was switching on the radio and then switching on television, waiting for the news to come, while I was brewing coffee in my cousin's kitchen and looking at this idle person who was going from place to place. And eventually, during the Pivot's program, the announcement was made.
Oh.
And so I didn't say anything until the end, and then he brought up the subject.
You are a novelist, you're a poet, you're a playwright as well, and an activist. How did you decide to start writing?
Well, I grew up in an environment which was very theatrical. Theatrical in the sense that I used to watch the traditional masquerades processions through the streets. I was fascinated by the colors, the costuming, the gestures, etc. And my father also, who was a teacher, he was a headmaster of a school. He was a musical person. He used to play the harmonium, I think it was called. And then he also used to direct plays, school plays, and seasonal plays, even for the entire community. And I used to participate in it. As a school pupil, I remember playing a role as the magician, which was a kind of operetta, singing and so on. And I was fascinated by the entire ferment, creative ferment, especially on the theatrical side. And it was inevitable, I suppose, that I would begin to sketch plays for my siblings, my friends, my school friends, and we'd perform, you know, imitating what we saw in the streets and in the schoolroom sometimes. That's how it all started.
You were imprisoned during the civil war in Nigeria in the late 60s, and it was then when the famous book The Man Died started to come together. You're writing on toilet paper. What did you learn from that experience?
I learned how to make ink from material around me. I learned how to make the best of circumstances. I learned how to create a pen. I learned also how to steal a pen. That's from the doctor who came to look after me, and by that time I had no writing material. I was deprived of paper, anything to do with writing. And so I remember that very well. And after, of course, the ink dried up, I learned how to use a feather which fell from a crow into the yard, turned it into a pen, made my ink from coffee, and improvised all kinds of things. I even relearned a subject which I hated in school, and that's mathematics. And being deprived of paper, mathematics was something you could work out, geometric formula, etc., laws of permutations and combinations. I loathed those in school. But I relearned all of that, through scratching on walls and writing with a stick on the ground. So it was things like that which I improved my chess by creating small pieces to represent all the pieces on the board and so on. Try to remember games in my head. What else? Learned to enjoy living by myself.
You also enjoy it now. You enjoy solitude.
Very much
like
so.
it a lot.
Yes, I've always been a bit like that. But in there, really, I think I had a little bit excess of it, but learned how to cope with that.
Why the title, The Man Died?
When I came out, I moved back into my activist performance, and there was an incident where one young man, whom I knew very well, was more or less beaten to death by one of the military governors. He was supposed to have done something at a party at which this governor was. And so I took an interest. He was taken ill after his torture. And so I kept up interest in his welfare. And while I was, soon after that, after my release, I found I had to go into exile, voluntary exile, just to recover all sorts of things, decompress. But I took a continuing interest in his fate. And one day I received a telegram titled, "The Man Died." And that's how I adopted it. And it was like all of us died with that individual for being able to save him. And it was around that time I developed this oft-quoted statement, "The man dies in all who keep silent in the face of tyranny."
Was it difficult to stand up for the human rights in that period? There was the Civil War. Well, nowadays it's also lots of conflicts.
I've always found it's more difficult not to do anything about a situation about which you felt uncomfortable, contradictory, and just anomalous, in what I consider an ideal society. It's far more difficult, somebody of my temperament, not to do anything.
You're not afraid?
At the time, I don't think so, because, for the simple reason that I find an alternative. You mentioned solitude earlier. You want to live with yourself. You enjoy being by yourself. And so it becomes important to be at peace with yourself, to be able to work, play, enjoy yourself normally, enjoy your company. If there's something nagging you, in the back of your mind, then you're not at ease.
So it's like an urge to go and fight it, discuss it.
I don't like that word urge.
Not the urge?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's too activist, the word urge. And I really, sometimes I use the expression, I'm a glutton for tranquility. and so urge is too active.
Okay.
It's just an inevitable thing, let's put it that way, with me.
I noticed in the description of the Nobel Prize for Literature motivation, it said something like for revealing the tragism of human existence. In what lies this tragism?
It's the judges who've coined that phrase, so they are the ones who have to explain that, that extraction for me. I don't think I set out consciously to attain that in my writing. I'm just I find myself just fascinated by the whole tumult of human activities, the variety of it, and I enjoy studying people the way I also study myself. Sometimes I actually tolerate that exercise of studying myself and how I relate to things. So I don't believe that I have any kind of thematic core that sort of spurs me to write certain things. I begin the other way around, I think, by observing, expressing, and I suppose in the process one finds life either comic or tragic, or maybe tragicomic. That covers everything. Sometimes melodramatic also.
How about your characters? How would you describe them?
I steal other people's characters. Well, don't all writers do that? I don't form characters around ideas. I think I extract ideas out of characters, out of humanity, and then frame the persona, the personae. It's a complex process, and I think it varies all the time. Okay, suppose for instance I'm upset and obsessed by certain negativities in society, and I want immediately to criticize and express that attitude of negative extraction. Then it's possible for me. I have two ways, right? Okay. One, I pick a victim and exaggerate that victim, perhaps. On the other hand, I can then create a totally fictitious individual, a character who embodies the worst, occasionally also the best of what I've observed.
What is your activism focused on now?
Well, the first confession I have to make is that I had, in fact, retired, which made about the 12th time or so in my entire existence when I said, time to retire and time just to get out. And in this instance, I said to myself, I wasn't going to write any more plays. And I would just, do the occasional workshop, enjoy, things which, the arts which I normally enjoy. And then something happened in my society which just went to the core of my existence. And that was a young student who was lynched by some religious fundamentalists on the pretext that she insulted the Prophet Muhammad. That's in my own society, a student, young. And as if that wasn't horrifying enough, one of the murderers, who actually struck the final match that consumed her after they'd beaten her to a pulp, actually went on social media and posed with a box of matches. This is about a year ago. Now, this brought me out of my retirement. It was, I could no longer live in that society where even this process of justice was perverted to enable that boy and his colleagues to escape. Pretense of a trial which went on, and eventually was acquitted.
Is it possible to actually stop this kind of events?
Oh yes, this is where the community has to be, stirred up one way or the other to say you are not a fully realized community if you permit this kind of thing to happen.
But it's beginning to happen often and often, more and more.
Well, it's been happening a lot. It's been happening a lot. Not all over the world. It's not just in our society. But one likes to think that at least your own community turns a very stern eye against this. It's not, it's not true. It happens here. It happens there. But when it comes close, close, close. And you see what makes what I consider a humanized community to surrender or to tolerate whatever is intolerable. Then you feel you just must go back to your trade as a means of expression.
You said something very interesting, I believe, during a CNN interview. Putin is not Gorbachev. I thought it was like a description for a character. How do you view the conflict between Russia and Ukraine now?
I have an abiding faith. I really believe that human beings are born into freedom, and that it's other human beings who enslave them. Whether we're talking about individuals, we're talking about communities. I believe that the very act of ejecting a human entity from even from a natural confinement, that entity is born. The reason that entity emerges is because of freedom, because of an instinct for freedom. Ranged against freedom is the element, the phenomenon of power. And when I look at characters like Putin, Trump, Netanyahu, what I see are embodiments. No matter what excuses, historical excuses they have, no matter what ideologies they have, no matter even what wrongs they are trying to redress, at the basis of it, running through it all, is always this groping towards power, control, domination over others. You can analyze, dissect in as many little pieces as you want any form of religion, any form of secular ideology, any kind of a mechanism for governing society. You'll find at the base of it, that love of domination of others. And I find that totally unacceptable. Yes. And so I arrange myself on the side of freedom, whether it's been denied by a so-called capitalist society or a so-called Marxist society, communist society, progressive, retrogressive. I don't give a damn. What I ask is just how much freedom is left to the individual or even the group of individuals. What makes it wrong for them to choose one way or the other? Yes.
So in a way, it's not only a form of dictatorship, so to speak, but a form of enslaving.
And this is where, the dissidents become, for me, the angels, within any kind of dictatorship. I believe that society can be governed without compulsion, and that it's a lie when people say, oh, this is for the good of the community, of the society, of the state, that we are curtailing the freedom. It's a lie.
But why are people so attracted to this kind of leadership? Because they are?
You've seen the example of the United States. There you have a country which says it's the bastion of liberty, of freedom, of democracy, and so on. And with their eyes wide open, they choose somebody who says in advance and who has demonstrated in a number of ways at his first coming, I'm going to be a dictator. Now, it makes nonsense of my belief, but I hang to it just the same. I believe that history, there's a kind of latent sort of a residuum of history sometimes which governs the collective, which twists the collective psyche. And when you've had a slaving society, a society built on slavery, as in the United States of America, we should not be surprised if from time to time, that residuum of control has come to work on the psyche, so that they feel, oh, this is boring. Let's try this monster for a change. Let's try this brutal character who, when a black man is lynched on the streets, I'm talking now, Floyd George, all he has to all he could say was, go out in the streets and dominate that space. There's not one word of empathy, of sympathy, of regret as a leader. And yet, that society votes him back in power.
Very to the point what you said. It's the same here in Romania with the communism. It's this kind of psychological residuum that kicks in, and still kicks in.
So, and when somebody emerges who, stupid as he may appear, he recognizes that trait in society and is able to twang that chord and have himself been followed.
What should the writing, literature, theater stand for now?
Just continue, I believe, writing and impressing on society that we're also part of that society, and that what hurts society hurts us, or what we see might hurt us is already there hurting the rest of society. That's all we can say or do. That's all.
Describe your favorite place in Africa for us.
Well, it's difficult for me because I've already carved out a little bit of real estate, which is totally surrounded by forest, where I hide most of the time. I call it the Autonomous Republic of Ijegba. And it's not like the rest of society. But Africa is, as you know, so varied. Even I, who travel so much, cannot say I've covered all the variety of the environment. There's some parts which, of course, are more beautiful than others. We have the forests, you have the mountains. You even have, many people don't know that we sometimes have snow in certain parts of Africa. So those who have not been to the African continent, better get ready for a shock. It's not quite like whatever they were taught, because it's so varied.
How is life at 90s?
That's my problem, that I don't feel 90.
That's
I've been waiting to enjoy the feeling of being old and aged, and I still don't know what it's like, because I don't feel different. And that is my problem. I don't feel different than 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30, 40. I don't feel different.
Wole Soyinka, thank you very much for joining the Romanian Cultural Television.
Marvelous talk.